Last episode of Future Digital, we talked about how the IMF is coming for crypto. In this episode, we'll examine exactly how they might do that and what it will mean for you. In a Brazil nutshell, the IMF claims to be concerned about developing countries, as well as BRIC countries like Brazil, using crypto and ditching fiat currencies. Remember that fiat currencies aren't actually based on anything like gold. The dollar itself is a fiat currency, and the IMF essentially is a bank that gives countries loans in dollars. Clearly, it's in their own interests to crack down on what they perceive as a threat: cryptocurrencies. The IMF in their recent report listed 6 elements of how a global crackdown, global dominance, global regulation of crypto might look. These elements would be establishing global standards, accessing crypto data on the blockchain, analyzing risks, covering all aspects of crypto, meaning every single niche, trying to prevent any aspect of crypto from getting too big, and the final element is global consistency in their approach for regulating crypto. Now, for all these elements of controlling an unregulated industry, obviously you're going to have a lot of global coordination for it to work. Why? Because crypto is literally everywhere and nowhere, like Russia's FSB. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that the organization, or perhaps entity is a better word, that will likely attempt to crack down on crypto is probably going to be the FSB. Yet, not that FSB, this one is the Financial Stability Board. On a personal note, the name Financial Stability Board is somewhat of an oxymoron. Capitalism has many faults. Let's be honest, it's built on continuous growth. I did not say sustainable growth. The very nature of capitalism is that it has to always be growing. I heard an analogy once that if today's capitalist system had begun in ancient Egypt and continued growing at a steady 3 to 5% per year up until modern times, then by today the size of the global economy would roughly extend to the orbit of Neptune. Interestingly, Neptune is the Roman name of the Greek god Poseidon, which in ancient Egypt would have corresponded to the sea god Nu. Constant growth means constant innovation or always having something new. Capital is similar to Darwinism, however, in that it's the survival of the fittest. More stability doesn't necessarily mean stronger growth. Humans thrive in the face of adversity and become lazy in its absence. Innovation only becomes necessary if there's something to overcome, after all, so the very notion of stability contraindicates the need for innovation. Hence, a financial stability board via its very name is contradictory. Anyhow, this report by the IMF says that any potential regulations of crypto would also apply to stablecoins, even though they are backed by other currencies. That is yet another contradiction. And while I might even agree with the first 4 elements of the IMF's plan, as well as the 6th, it's this fifth element that bothers me. Preventing any aspect of crypto from getting too big. If we were talking about antitrust regulations, monopolies, then I would totally agree. Crypto, however, is not a company. There is no main shareholder who has their eyes on global domination. So preventing crypto from getting so-called too big is directly anti-capitalist by its very nature. Now that I think about it, I'm starting to disagree with the other elements too. For example, the risk analysis element. This to me sounds like a completely arbitrary labeling of something as a risk just because you yourself don't really like it that much. I myself don't like peanut butter, so I'm going to ban everyone from eating peanut butter. If you really think about it, this is utterly childish and selfish. Such is the IMF. So what exactly is the IMF? The International Monetary Fund is essentially the main financial organization of the United Nations. And despite what I said earlier about stability, I'm not a libertarian. Too much or too little of anything is bad, and that includes regulation. For those libertarians out there, sorry, but society simply can't exist without some level of regulation. It is a balancing act, and sometimes a government or similar entity might step a little too far to one side. This is what the IMF is doing right now. I support what the IMF is intended to do, but this time, they're going too far. It really makes me think that they do not have the best interests of the United Nations of our planet in mind, but the best interests of the people who might only be seen in a movie like Eyes Wide Shut. But don't listen to me, I'm not a financial advisor. Actually, do listen to me, and like our videos and subscribe to our channels. And share it. I don't mean share it in an Eyes Wide Shut way, but you get the picture, because there was a hidden camera. Ha! Future Digital is brought to you from Estonia, the crypto capital of the European Union. Estonia is a land of confusion and a land of signs. I would argue that this relatively small country has more signs per capita than any other country in the world. And they don't always make sense either. For example, in Tallinn, the capital city, if you go to the train station, you will see this sign that consistently gives you wrong information. Or the Estonian word for pea, like the delicious green food in a pod, is hernes. Sometimes Estonians get confused. But perhaps the most contradictory sign of all is if you want to quit smoking and you go to the Estonian Anti-Smoking Help Center, there is a sign on the front door that says Tumba.